What if the fastest shortcut to mental clarity and sharp intuition isn't another app, another diet, another productivity trick, but a tiny, verifiable point inside your own body that you can check in under a minute? What if, in 30 seconds of attention and a few quiet words, you could produce a shift in how you perceive thought and choice? In this video, I'll show you a simple, embodied verification and a brief activation you can do tonight. It's not a promise of miraculous transformation, but it is a practical technique. A short, 3-step self-check followed by a concise spoken declaration that many who've practiced it report as an immediate clarifying shift in perception. If anything you feel during the practice resonates, write the single word recognition in the comments. That will help us sense who is practicing with attention. Before we begin the hands-on work, a tight bit of background that explains why this matters and why it feels subversive. Materials like the text discovered at Nag Hammadi and writings such as the Gospel of Philip contain references to practices and maps of self-knowledge that didn't make it into mainstream religious curricula. According to those texts and other Gnostic sources, certain teachings were preserved in smaller circles and later marginalized during the political consolidation of orthodoxy in the 4th and 5th centuries. I'm not saying those texts are equivalent to canonical scripture. I'm simply pointing out that, according to these sources, there existed practical methods intended to produce direct inner verification, ways people could test their own awareness without mediation. Why would a practice like this be hidden or downplayed? To put it plainly, a system that benefits from fog and uncertainty has incentives to maintain that fog. In the interpretation I'm offering, there's a mythic description of a primordial source, sometimes called the monad or mon, from which fragments of consciousness emerge. That original source is the deepest claim about origin. Think of it as the quiet, unnameable center from which knowing first appears. Between that origin and ordinary waking life, some traditions describe a kind of control architecture, a secondary creative force often called the demiurge, and a set of influencing patterns or intelligences sometimes named archontes. These are metaphors and models for the forces that generate bafflement, distraction, or self-doubt. They aren't literal villains in the way modern conspiracy stories frame antagonists, but image structures that explain why clarity can be difficult to sustain. The practical point is simple. If clarity has been obscured by noise, then a direct embodied signal, something you can verify with your own senses, cuts through that noise. This is the shortcut I want to give you, a 3-mark self-check, followed by a brief, focused declaration. The marks are described in several Gnostic-adjacent sources and in later experiential reports from practitioners. Presenting them here is an invitation to experiment, not a medical diagnosis or a guaranteed guarantee of outcomes. You may find nothing at first. You may notice subtle textures, warmth, or a change in mental tone. All of those are valid results. Here's the practical roadmap. Take a moment to make sure you're in a place where you can lightly touch yourself. Choose a quiet moment. Tonight, before sleep, often works well. And allow at least a few uninterrupted minutes. Gently, with your own hands, we'll investigate 3 places: the base of the skull, mark of origin, the lateral edge of the hand near the pinky, mark of perception, and the center of the sternum slightly above the heart, mark of command. These are gentle checks. If you feel pain or strong discomfort at any point, stop and simply rest. This is a self-check, not a self-harm protocol. Mark 1, origin, the base of the skull. Sit comfortably, with your head supported. Bring both hands behind your head and let your fingertips meet where the skull slopes to the neck, at the very base. With light, non-forceful touch, notice the texture there. Allow curiosity to surface. Is there a slight hollow, a subtle change in skin texture, a sensation of coolness or quiet? Don't force an interpretation. For about 30 seconds, let your attention rest on that point. As you do so, you may notice immediate thoughts. This is nonsense. I must be doing it wrong, or analytic commentary about the environment. Treat those thoughts as what they are, noise, and gently return your attention to the point beneath your fingertips. Many people report a small easing, a sense of being anchored, or a tiny release in mental chatter during this check. Others notice nothing on the first try. That's fine. The important step is the embodied verification. You are asking your body and attention to report. Mark 2. Perception. The lateral edge of the hand. Open your hand and look along the side from the base of the pinky toward the wrist. With the index and middle finger of the opposite hand, trace a slow line along that edge. The area to explore is the fleshy ridge between the pinky base and the wrist on the side of the hand, away from the thumb. Move slowly and notice for any subtle ridge, indentation, or a line that feels slightly different under your fingertip. Keep your attention light and observant, like a detective touching for a clue. Pay attention to any micro-sensations, a tiny prickling, a change in temperature, or a sense of recognition. If nothing appears, simply acknowledge that and move on. If something does appear, let that be your data point, not a conclusion. Mark 3. Command. The center of the sternum, just above the heart. Place 2 fingers gently at the center of your chest, a little higher than the heart center, near the center line of the sternum. Apply only very soft pressure. The point is to notice subtle radiating qualities, not to press deeply. Hold for a few breaths and notice for a sensation of warmth, an opening in the throat, a small settling or a spreading calm. Many practitioners describe a radiance or a tiny expansion as attention lands there. Again, if any discomfort arises, ease away and rest. This is a place to feel what your nervous system and attention report without coercion. If you move through these checks without noticing anything dramatic, that's okay. What matters most is the precision of attention and the willingness to accept whatever the body reports. If you do notice something, a warmth, a coolness, a textural shift, an easing of mental noise, honor that as a data point. Either way, the next step is the activation declaration, a short 3-line spoken affirmation designed to align intention and physiology. Speak it aloud if you can. Your voice helps anchor attention. The declaration is 3 short lines, each ending with the word now. Say each line deliberately, letting the words land as you press or hold the relevant mark. Remember origin now. Open perception now. Claim command now. Speak each line once after the corresponding touch. First say the first line while at the base of the skull, then the second line while tracing the hand edge, then the third line while resting your fingers at the sternum. You can repeat the 3-line sequence once more if it feels natural. Treat the words as an attentional anchor, a focused affirmation that helps align the body and mind. It's not a magical incantation. It's a practiced declaration intended to concentrate your notice. Many people report that saying these lines out loud, with gentle attention on the marks, produces a rapid shift in mental clarity or in the sense of inner authority. Expect resistance. As you attempt this short practice, intrusive skepticism, self-criticism, and distracting stories often arise. In the framework used here, such phenomena can be described metaphorically as archontic interference, patterns that generate doubt and keep attention fragmented. When those thoughts show up, do not engage them as evidence that the practice fails. Observe them as noise, name them if you wish. Thinking, doubt, narrative, and return your attention to the bodily point you're checking. Resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that something has noticed your intention, and that is meaningful. The systems that maintain fog react when attention begins to home in on clarity. Your steady return to the body is the actual work. After you speak the declaration, pause for a moment and become attentive to any shifts. You may notice your thought stream thinning. You may feel a warmth in the chest that spreads outward. You may notice a slight clarity around decision-making or a heightened sense of, "this is right," in relation to small choices. Others report a rising tone in the throat, a calm that allows inner impressions to come through more distinctly, or a muffled sense of external noise dropping away. All these are probable outcomes for some practitioners. None are guaranteed. If you experience a sudden spike of fear, dizziness, or strong discomfort, stop and breathe gently. If symptoms persist or concern you, consult a qualified healthcare professional. This quick procedure is designed to be repeatable. Many people find it productive to practice the 3 checks and the declaration for several nights in a row, perhaps 10 minutes total, ideally in a quiet environment before sleep. Repetition trains attention. The more often you verify with your own hands and voice, the faster your nervous system learns to recognize and stabilize whatever subtle pattern you're calling into awareness. Over time, small, replicable shifts in clarity and intuitive feeling can accumulate. Again, that's a report from practitioners, not a universal promise. Why might this feel like a shortcut? Because it bypasses long, exclusively conceptual study and asks for immediate, embodied evidence. Theory can be useful, but it can also be a veil. The 3 marks are a way to test, directly, whether a subtle alignment is present. You don't have to take anyone's word for it. You can touch, listen, and speak for yourself, and then observe how your mind responds. That immediacy is the essence of the shortcut. There are practical nuances that help make the check reliable. Keep the pressure light. Heavy pressure creates defensive bodily reactions that confuse the signal. Use your breath as a gentle anchor. A natural inhale as you place your fingers, an easy exhale as you speak the line. If you are in a noisy or stressful environment, the effectiveness may be diminished. The practice benefits from minimal distraction. Keep expectations modest. Curiosity and consistency matter more than performance. There is also a social historical dimension worth noting. Teachings framed as secret often persist in smaller networks because direct experience carries a social risk. Those who claim inner authority sometimes threaten existing structures. Historically, during the consolidation of orthodoxy in late antiquity, some writings and practices associated with intuitive knowing were excluded from the canonical corpus, according to scholars of Nag Hammadi materials. That's the context in which these practices have been intermittently transmitted. Today, the availability of translated texts and experiential reports allows you to explore these methods with a historically informed curiosity rather than an uncritical acceptance. After you've done the basic sequence, skull, hand, sternum, and the 3-line declaration, pause and take note. You may test the shift with a simple decision. Choose between 2 small options and notice if one feels clearer. Or simply listen to the tone of your inner speech. If you experienced anything at all, please leave the word recognition in the comments. That single word signal helps create a subtle archive of who is practicing with attention and who is reporting results. Remember, the word is optional. Sharing is up to you. If you want to extend the practice, here are gentle suggestions. Create a nightly routine of 3 to 5 minutes. Keep a small notebook of subjective impressions and avoid making sweeping life changes based on a single session. The purpose is to cultivate a reliable method of self-verification so that intuitive impressions can be tested and refined by personal experience. If at any time emotional material surfaces that feels overwhelming, seek support from a qualified practitioner. Let's anticipate a few objections and clarify them. You might say, "Is this just a placebo?" Perhaps. Many meaningful practices rely on placebo-like mechanisms that focus attention and intention. A more precise way to put it is that words, touch, and directed attention create a specific physiological and cognitive alignment that often produces new information. That new information can manifest as clearer thinking or a more confident gut sense. Whether you label the process psychological, energetic, or symbolic, the important point is that it is verifiable by you. You might also ask, Why speak these exact lines? The lines are crafted to align three functional registers: origin, memory or grounding, perception, opening to input, and command, authorized choice. Saying now at the end of each line operates as a temporal anchor. It insists the mind and body align in this present moment. You can adapt the words to your own language or sense. What matters is the triadic structure and the focused vocalization. Some will feel a rush of curiosity about the cosmological language, monad, demiurge, archontes. Treat those terms as metaphors that map common experiences, a sense of origin, patterns that cloud perception, and mechanisms that erode confidence. If the metaphors help you make sense of your inner life, use them. If they feel like unnecessary baggage, set them aside and focus on the practice. If you decide to try this tonight, a recommended sequence is: find a quiet 5-minute window before sleep. Do the 3 checks with the approximate duration suggested, about 30 seconds at the skull, a slow trace along the hand, a gentle 2-finger hold at the sternum. Speak each line while on the corresponding mark. Repeat the 3-line sequence once if it feels right, and then rest in quiet observation for a minute. Keep a short log. Did you feel warmth, clarity, calm, or no change? Over a week, patterns often emerge. A short note about community and the ethics of sharing. Many practices like these spread through small networks because they are experiential. If you share your results, do so with humility. Your internal experiences are valid for you, not universal commandments. If you teach someone else, emphasize safety and consent. Never press another person into a practice they feel uncomfortable with. To close, return your attention to the title: The Fastest Shortcut to Mental Clarity and Sharp Intuition. This method is fast, not because it guarantees instant mastery, but because it redirects your attention to an embodied, verifiable signal rather than to an endless loop of concepts. It gives you a test you can perform with your own hands and voice. That immediacy is what makes it a shortcut. You can either verify the presence of a subtle alignment, or you cannot, and in either case you have direct information to work with. If you found this helpful or you plan to try it tonight, subscribe and save this video for repeated practice. In future videos, I'll offer deeper activations and variations for building sustained clarity. But for now, start with the 3 checks: base of skull, lateral hand, center sternum, and the simple 3-line declaration. If you felt anything during the exercise, leave the 1-word comment, recognition. That single act will connect you to a quiet community of people testing their own seeing. Go gently with this. The fastest shortcut is simple, but simplicity requires careful attention. If you practice with honesty and patience, you'll begin to learn how your own body speaks back, and that listening is the most reliable instrument for sharpening intuition and clearing mental fog.